That's the salt that we use here at Living Light. It's the only salt we use, but we do have other salty seasonings. And this is called tamari, which is a kind of a soy sauce. And this is a wheat-free tamari. It's unpasteurized, so that means it hasn't been cooked. It's fermented, so it is a live food. It is teeming with friendly bacteria because it's fermented. And that's good. It's good for your digestion to take in some fermented foods. Because it's wheat-free, even people who have wheat sensitivities can use this kind of tamari. They can't eat all different kinds of tamari, but they can use this one. This one is made by Osawa. It's a particular brand of tamaris, and it's unpasteurized, as I said. So that's my other salty flavoring that I'm putting in my marinade. And all I have to do is either whisk or mix that together. And now I'm going to add my mushrooms. All right. And I'll just toss these. And here we have. You can toss them with your hands if you'd like, or you can, as I'm doing, just toss them with a couple of spatulas. And just make sure that they're well coated. They don't really need to be coated on the inside. You don't have to worry about pouring it into the well, just as long as they're well coated on all around the outside. And this marinade is what's going to really give them that cooked flavor and appearance. Okay. Ah, yes, I was supposed to put oil in that. Thank you. This is why I have an assistant, so that she can keep me honest here. Yes, I missed the oil. Oil is an important part of this. I don't want to just pour it over the top now that I've missed it, because of the fact that I have all of these mushrooms. The open part or well of the mushroom would absorb all of the oil. So instead, if I put it on the side, as you can see, it's going to blend with that. So you all make mistakes in the kitchen. You forget an ingredient, just like I did. That's one way to make sure that when you add it, you don't end up with all of the oil inside the little wells of the mushroom. Just kind of think things through before you act. It usually helps. Okay, so now those are also coated with a nice oil. And as I'm doing this, I'm kind of turning them over so that they can sit in the marinade. And I'll be filling them right here while they're in this container. So this is perfect to have the well up. It'll be easy to fill. All right, so now we'll just set that aside. This actually goes here. And I'm going to begin now making my filling. So the filling just has a few ingredients. As you can see, it has pine nuts, and I have pre-soaked these pine nuts. You don't really have to if you decide at the last minute that you want to make this dish. Don't worry too much about whether or not the pine nuts have been soaked. You can still make it. Or you can add a little bit of hot water to them and soak them for about 10 minutes. They absorb water pretty quickly. So I'm just going to drain them out. These were really only soaking for about half an hour, even though I think the recipe says 2 hours or an hour. I'm not sure, but anyway, they've really only been soaking for about half an hour, but I put some warm water in there, so they'll be fine. Okay, so I have those now set aside. And I'm going to be preparing some of the other ingredients that I need. One ingredient that I need is basil. So I'm taking my basil leaves, and this is fresh basil. If you didn't have fresh basil available to you, you could use dried basil. I suggest normally about 1/3 the amount of dried basil. If it calls for a tablespoon, for example, of fresh basil, then 1 teaspoon would make up 1/3 of that. So 1 teaspoon of dried basil. What I'm doing now is I'm doing a technique called chiffonade. And to chiffonade a leaf like this, and this could be for just about any leafy green, you would stack the leaves on top of each other, which I've done here, and then roll them, just like so. I'm going to mince it, but first I'm going to chiffonade, because it's just going to be easier for me to start that way. I've kind of folded it up into a bunch, and now I'm just going to make paper-thin cuts of the basil, holding it very carefully because I have to have my fingertips keeping it under control, but I want those fingertips to be back. So important whenever you're handling a knife to be in complete control of the knife and of your fingertips, and also of your thoughts. If you're thinking negative thoughts or you're frustrated, it's very possible that you could cut yourself. So you really want to be present. So now I've cut this way, and I'm just going to give it a little turn and then cut crosswise. Exactly the same thing. Very closely, fine cuts, keeping my fingertips back and my knuckles forward. Now I already have, just by doing that, I have nice fine cuts, and I'm going to mince. Now to mince, I just move in a fan-like motion over and over and over. And when the herb starts to get too much out of control, just want to rein it back in again. You notice I use the back of my knife to scrape on my board rather than my fine blade, because that would really dull my blade. And that looks like it's finely minced enough now. And my recipe calls for how much basil? 2 teaspoons. And that looks like I have plenty there. So I'm going to put my mixture. Here's my 2 teaspoons. There's 1. 2. In fact, that's perfect, isn't it? Very good. You always want to, whenever you're working with herbs, to not have a fluffy measure, but have a slightly packed measure. That's really the only way you know that it's consistent. And I just have a tiny bit left here. A little bit extra won't hurt it at all. This isn't rocket science. Some things, in some cases, you really have to measure carefully, but when it comes to a pinch more basil or not, it's not a problem. Okay, another thing that we need in this is parsley, and I can see that the parsley here has already been slightly minced for me, so I'm just going to go ahead and complete that mincing as well, and I'm going to need a 1/4 cup of that. Now you could, if you were a real basil lover, you could leave the parsley out and just use a lot more basil. And that would be great. Or you might want to mix your herbs and have a nice blend of Italian herbs for this. I've even made it with cilantro. Very good with fresh cilantro. You could use a combination of mint. Sounds strange, but mint and basil and parsley, or even mint and cilantro is very nice. Okay, and that looks like about a 1/4 cup to me, so we're just going to go ahead and add that.